Imagine setting out on a journey that not only elevates your understanding of leadership, but transforms how you navigate personal growth and empowerment. Hear firsthand from industry leaders authentic stories, actionable insights, diverse perspectives, community engagement, and continuous learning. Welcome to Conversations That Matter. And now your host, Ed Ross.
Welcome back to another episode of Conversations That Matter. I'm your host, Ed Ross, and I'm excited today to bring you our first live studio episode. Not only am I excited to bring you our first live studio episode, I'm super amped about today's guest. I have a guest who is a brilliant leader. He's insightful. He's a great mentor. He has phenomenal stories, but most importantly, he continues to give back to the community and to emerging and evolving leaders. So with that, I want to introduce today's guest, TJ. TJ, welcome to the show, man.
Hey, man, that's the best intro that I've gotten, and I didn't know that this was going to be your first live show.
Yeah.
I'm pumped up, man. I'm excited to be here, and after getting to know you over the past couple of years, just following your journey and just the way you talk about executive presence, not only that, but how you bring leaders to an important conversation is something I'm glad to be a part of. So hopefully there's no edits. I like to be raw. I like to be authentic. So as long as I have that permission from you, it'll be safe for work, but it'll be real conversation. That's at least what I intend.
Yeah, and absolutely. And our intention, we wanted to be really clear about the show. There's lots of podcasts out there, TJ, that people talk about that are popular. We wanted a show that really brought real conversations forward. And as we were going through the names, thinking about what we can name it, we had a little contest to see who could come up with the name. Conversations That Matter really stuck with me for that reason. We wanted the show to be authentic. We wanted it to be real. We wanted leaders to be comfortable bringing their real self to the show and sharing the good parts, the challenging parts, right? Like, here are things that I wish I knew, and do that in an environment within the frame of the show. So we're super excited to have you here today, and really looking forward to getting into your leadership journey, understanding, where did you decide to go right, go left, right? Where do you wish you had gone straight, and use that as a platform for others that are now trying to navigate their way through leadership.
No, absolutely. Well, that's what I'm here for. I mean, I'm here because leaders poured into me, and not only did they pour into me, they modeled the steps. So all I had to do was witness. Wow, okay, that's the journey. That's the GPS for the location. I'm gonna follow that route. Yeah, and I'm terrible with directions, man. So no, in terms of my leadership journey, it's been an experience where I've got to witness tons of great leaders. Right. And some of these weren't necessarily in a traditional setting, but those were the most meaningful experiences and relationships for me personally.
Okay. Yeah. You mentioned directions earlier. You and I were talking off camera, right, about, coming to the venue, and you're like, oh yeah, I kind of went by it. And I was thinking, then I was like, nope, just follow the instructions, right? Just go back and trust the process. And I think that is very true for leaders today. Oftentimes, you're put in a role because of your performance in a previous job, sometimes not even involving people leadership. And so you're getting into a new environment with new roles, new responsibilities. But sometimes, TJ, that comes with little guidance.
Right.
So you're trying to, fly the plane and build it, or change the tire on the bus and drive it, right? All those sayings that we've used over the years. When you think back to your journey from going from individual contributor into a people leader role, what stands out to you the most? Can you remember an experience that you went through where you're like, okay, this is a different role that requires a different skill set?
Well, the first thing that I remember, and we got to go back before that, I remember thinking, I'm going to be the LeBron James of selling. I'm going to stick to selling. The money's good. I control my own schedule, which it wasn't necessarily true. I showed up when the cases were scheduled. Okay. But the major fear that I had, and I share this because there's maybe someone that will feel the same way or be able to relate to it. I was nervous about technology. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to lead a virtual call. I'm gonna have to share my screen. Man, I don't know if I'm comfortable with that. I'm more of a people person. I don't know that I want to deal with technology. And now I found through a variety of different leadership experiences, both from mentoring, both from the formal leadership roles that I've been in, some of those fears, we got to attack it. So the first thing that I had to accomplish in getting into that seat of, hey, you're going to be leading people is what I call being a robot. Okay. I saw myself, okay, here's how leaders talk. Here's how leaders act. Here's how leaders think. And what I found is I didn't get put into the role because of my performance. It was more so because of my potential. What people have seen, oh, I think you can go do more. I think you can accomplish more. So that faith that others had in me, I had to tap into it. I, again, had to trust the process, believe we put you into this seat for a reason. So number one was overcoming that fear. Number two was understanding that when you're in that seat, you're charged with making people's lives better from the perspective of encouraging them, number one, and providing feedback. So the first obstacle, once I realized don't be a robot, be authentic, be genuine, be yourself, was, hey, you got to go out here and coach. You have to be willing to give the feedback. And initially I made a mistake early on where I'm like, only thing that changed was the title on the business card. These reps that I'm coaching, they're talented people. They know what they're doing. And that was the mistake that probably 3 months in, I'm like, okay, we need to go back to the drawing board. Not only are you going to be able to do virtual meetings, that was easy to check, but you're going to have to provide feedback and allow people the opportunity to respond to coaching. So those were the two biggest things that I think back on and remember.
Yeah. It's interesting that you say that, TJ, because leadership, management, and coaching are often used interchangeably, but they require very specific characteristics, skill sets, and traits. Was there someone in your life that you encountered, maybe a family member, a coach, someone from the community, that you saw who modeled good leadership, and then you were able to at least use that as a benchmark? Because I think oftentimes people struggle with just having a good example to follow, right? Like right. If it's hard to model something, it's hard to model good when you haven't seen good. Sounds good. Hard to model.
Man, one that I could give you 15 people. And, I'll be strategic with the two people that I select, but one would be my grandfather. I remember being a little boy, and at the time, I was in a single parent household, and that was the example of like, that's what it is. Everyone respects him in his town of Independence, Kansas. It's like, I want to be like that when I grow up. He's now 80. I'm not going to get away his full age. He's old as dirt. He's 85. Maybe he's 84. Okay. He's up there. Yeah. Like once he got past 80, I'm like, man, you old. But I saw him evolve in several key ways. He used to love beer. One day, no more beer. I'm like, that's strange. I wonder what makes him stop drinking beer. Yeah. I want my health to be better. I want to be around for you. I'm like, wow. Deep. Tobacco. Used to dip. I used to love seeing him do that. I didn't want to dip, but it was just like this. Again, I admired this man. So at that time, I'm like, maybe when I get older, I'll mow yards and, I'll take care of the community. I'll take care of friends, family. Everyone will respect me. And then from that standpoint, that's just what it is. So as a kid, I didn't know any better. But when he stopped, I wonder why. I thought it was because my grandmother wanted him to stop because it's a nasty habit. But it wasn't that. Again, for him, it was health. So I saw that not only did he pour into friends, family, everyone around him, he also was willing to show up for himself, turn his health around, and just be that model of consistency, accountability. For my 39 years on life, that's what I remember. The next person I think about is my neighbor, Miss Fudge. She passed away when I was maybe in the second grade, but it was at a time when the narrative about me, oh man, it was bad. I was the problem child. Now, what was unique about her, she worked at the school that I was getting kicked out of. So if I got kicked out, she would see me in the office. Her daughters babysat me. So I get kicked out. I go home. Guess who's there? She knows what happened.
Yeah, there's no getting away at that point.
There's no getting away. But here's the unique thing about her. She didn't let any narrative about me influence her ability to coach and set a standard for me that set me up for the rest of time. She didn't give up on me, not one time. And she forced me to do multiplication. She made me write out from 1 to 12. 1 times 1 equals 1. Like, I would do that.
Yeah.
Sheets of paper. And this is like as a first grader. So my math skills were off the charts. So whatever narrative that was being painted, I knew at that time it wasn't true from an academic standpoint. Now, the behavioral issues, that might have been true, but she held me to a standard that prepared me to succeed as I was able to evolve. So I told you I'd give you 2, one bonus one. My mom, she was the one that put me into new environments so that I could create a new narrative. And if I messed up, she wouldn't allow that narrative to stand. And by 3rd grade, it all clicked. And, the rest of the story is as it's written.
Yeah. It's awesome that you've had those people in your life. Your grandfather, right, who showed you the importance of investing in yourself.
Right.
Miss Fudge, who provided that community support, rallied around you, gave you skills, make sure that you understood the implication. Then your mom exposing you to new things.
Right.
You're super fortunate to have those experiences, and not every leader gets those experiences growing up. And unfortunately, not every leader gets them in the environments in which they're leading. That being said, when you think about these mentors that you've had in life, how are you using that as a leader now in your existing role? Those were great examples of how those leaders showed up in your life. Talk to us a little bit about how you're leveraging those lessons and the interactions that you're having today.
Man, I think about, to be honest, intentionality and the results that I want to see.
Yes.
And it's not comfortable. We got to choose our heart. And what I found when, I meditate and I have these moments of clarity where I'm on the Peloton and I'm like, man, you're supposed to be going harder. You're just trying to take a break. What I come up with is, what would I prefer? The pain of discipline or the pain of regret? And part of that, what I find is the pain of regret hurts more than the pain of discipline feels good. So it's like, yeah, I want to be disciplined. I want to be the best person that I can be. I want to show up for the people that show up for me. I want to inspire, but I don't want to look back and regret, man, I could have did that.
Yeah.
But I didn't have the courage. Man, I was afraid of AI. I was afraid of technology. So I didn't even attempt. So for me, I'm okay with failure. And I failed from, athletics to, relationships, et cetera. But that said, I don't want to look back and say I didn't try, I didn't put my best foot forward.
Yeah. You mentioned athletics. I know you're a cat. So I want to talk a little bit about that, because while we were doing our research, came across a couple of articles, and I know you were being kind, giving us 3. But I want to read you something that you said. You were talking about your career counselor, Jose Santos at Northwestern, and you talked about in another interview how important he was to your development as a player and a person. Talk to me a little bit more about that. How much did that mean to you, and what specifically stands out about that relationship for you?
Man, Ed, you did your research, man. So let's take you back. So I'm a student athlete at Northwestern. Again, a world-class institution. We're playing against the best football players in the country. In the classroom, I'm competing against the best students. And, I'm going through a process where in my heart, I'm like, you know what, maybe NFL might be in the cards. I wouldn't have got to where I was if I didn't think I was going to make it to the highest level. Fast forward. Well, now it's time to figure out, if you don't make it in that world, you got to get a job. So imagine I've dedicated and I'm just as ambitious, I'm just as focused now at this time as I am now. But the feedback that I was getting from counselors across that landscape was, well, why didn't you get an internship? And it's like, I was competing for the school to be the best football player I could be so we could be the best team on the field.
Right.
Well, why does your resume look like this? Why didn't you implement that? Why isn't this bullet? So the suggestions or the help that I got, I didn't feel that it was directional. I don't feel that it was necessarily impactful. And I felt ostracized at that point in my development. Jose Santos was an individual that said, oh man, you've done a lot of great stuff. Man, your resume looks great. Here's what you need to do. I need to put you in contact with some people that can help expose you to the opportunities that are available for you. You've got a unique skill set. Rather than try to make me fit some mold, you start introducing me to really sharp people. And it took me from a negative place to where I'm here to where I'm through the roof. So when I think back about him, he shaped how I interact and influence other people because he was willing to help move me forward. So many people are reactive and want to look back on what you should have did. And it's like, I'm here now.
Right.
What can I do today?
Yeah.
Moving forward.
I missed the exit already, right? I'm going forward. I missed the exit, right? Don't tell me I missed the exit and don't tell me how to get back to the exit. So I like that. And you touched on something that we talk a lot about, which is the psychology of being a leader and social intelligence. Being able to understand how to provide feedback in a context that it is impactful and it gives the person something to focus on other than, as you said, what's in the rearview mirror, right? Because if you're going forward and you're looking backwards, that's usually not going to lead to good results. You said something else that really stood out to me. You said your philosophy is it's not who you know or what you know, but who knows what you know. And that's super, super intriguing. When you said that, it made me pause, right? I'm like, well, we've been taught and conditioned to think it is who you know, right? It's the power of the network. Right. But then as I started to really think about what you said, and you just gave us a perfect example with Jose, he knew there was more. He just had to get you to focus on that.
Right.
How do you do that when you're leading a team of other people who may be new? Maybe you don't know their history, have a deep perspective on their pedigree, background, et cetera. How do you make that transition so that you are impactful on their careers?
The number one thing that I do, and Ed, thanks for filling the audience in on that mindset and mantra. I came from an environment of being on a football team with 100 people. Everyone knew the same people. Hey, we got this opportunity. Everybody knows about this opportunity. Whose opportunity is it? The name's right there. Everyone can reach out to that individual and say, hey, I'm interested in the opportunity. The key, however, though, is making sure that the individual that has that opportunity understands why you care about that opportunity in the first place. The person that knows what you know, that's far more dynamic than any other factor. So for me to know you, lots of people know you, but how is it that there are certain individuals that end up on your podcast? How is it that we're doing this live interview right now? You know what it is I care about, what it is I know. And, you know, from a social platform standpoint, LinkedIn, the start, of 2024, I got out of my comfort zone.
Yeah.
Every day, every business day, let me send something out positive. Let me send some perspective. Let me send some encouragement. Some of the messages are for me. Man, call your grandparents.
Yeah.
Call them. And a lot of people personal message me, hey man, thank you. Who was that message for? Well, it's for me, but there's other people that can relate to it.
Yes.
So when people know where your heart is, it's easier for them to really embrace what the next step looks like.
Yeah. And I love that you mentioned LinkedIn as a platform. You and I had a chance to interact a few years ago, but we've used LinkedIn to stay in touch with each other. And I'm the same way. I post, sometimes it's about an experience that I had. Maybe I was working with a client, something came up. It's something I'm passionate about. I'll have a conversation about that. But I love the fact that you said there are days when you post as a reminder to yourself, right? Of things that you should do, values that you hold. And other people connect to that. Because I believe we're all connected, right? There are
100%.
Things that happen at different phases and different times for each person.
Right.
But in the end, most of us want to give back. We want to be good people. We want to leave a mark on this world where someone remembers our name. And we had a previous guest who said our legacy typically lasts about 2 generations, right?
Yeah, that one hit.
About 2 generations.
That was deep.
And I'm trying to figure out how do I go 2.5? How do I go, one additional generation where my grandkids, my great grandkids are like, yeah, my great grandfather, right, did this, left this in the world. This is how he thought. This is what he taught, my parents, my grandparents.
Right.
How do we take that one more generation? I say that to say we have the same opportunity with leadership. As leaders, we have an opportunity to create a legacy tree of great leaders.
Right.
And when you think about great coaches, whether that's in athletics, think about great leaders, organization, government, community, there's always this tree of people that they influence.
Right.
Who else would you say is on your tree as someone who influenced you to be the leader that you are today?
Man, again, that list is long. I can go to my high school coach, Stefan Thompson. When I was a 133-pound freshman and I was a basketball player, I would say that full disclosure. He looked at me and said, hey, man, I think you can be great. I think you're going to be the player that we read about. And this is before I ever played it down for him. By the time I became a sophomore, I was on the varsity, I was starting. I questioned, are you sure that you meant me? Because it was my first year coming into high school playing football.
Okay.
So sophomore year was obviously my second. And I thought I was pretty good. But again, it wasn't based on production. He just saw potential and he was going to find a spot for me. And he spoke into existence what he saw. And all I had to do was live up to it. So he changed my life from a football perspective by putting me in position when I doubted it. Again, it was, this ain't for me. I'm a basketball player. He was like, no. You're starting. He took a senior that was pretty good and said, no, you. I'm like, why? I'm asking myself. I'm going to him saying, are you sure that this is supposed to be me? And throughout that experience, something happened, something clicked. My mom was a big part of that. My mom remarried, and my dad obviously was a big part of that because he played college football at NC State. But that scenario with him speaking that into existence and then having parents that were really, really supportive, there was no other option. I was blessed to be 6'2", could run and jump, work ethic. So those leaders willing to say, I see something for you when I didn't see it, that was huge. Pat Fitzgerald, my coach at Northwestern, again, a phenomenal leader, phenomenal human being. The thing that I really embrace and appreciate with him, he told me and delivered some of the most real and humbling and sobering feedback in my career. And then months later, I was a team captain. It's like, And the information that he gave me was still true. That was the thing that was amazing. Mm-hmm. And that's what I also realized as a leader. You have to be willing to go deep, and you cannot be afraid, oh man, he's not going to like me. Right. So I've had to decide, you're going to be a leader or you're going to want to be liked. And a lot of people want to be liked. It's fun. It sort of feels good. But again, going back to that pain of discipline or pain of regret. I decided, hey, if it's worth saying, say it. And not everybody's going to like it. But at the end of the day, I hope that they love the place that it's coming from, and then we can talk about it for generations to come. So you said that. That's what I think about. Man, when my kids, when they have kids, and I start doing the math, I'm like, ooh, when my kids have kids, I'm probably not here. But some of the stuff that I get to do in this life right now, hopefully it stands the test of time.
I love that you talked about the ability to see something in someone else. When I was in corporate America, I had someone who did that for me. I had given a speech at the national sales meeting. One of my team members won Rep of the Year. I delivered the speech. I was then recruited to go work for our education department. And at a pilot program, I had this young woman come over. Her name is Connie. And she kicked off the program by asking, one of those icebreaker questions, tell us something that nobody knows about you. And so I shared a story with them of traveling through the airport. And I'm traveling through the airport, trying to get to this meeting. I was coming from somewhere else, maybe a family event. I was running a little bit behind. So I was like anxious. Right. And I noticed as I was moving through the airport, TJ, people were taking pictures and video cameras, everybody's on their phone. So I'm on the phone with my wife and I'm talking. I'm like, yeah, I'm running behind. It's like, I don't know what's wrong with these people. Like everywhere I go, people have their phone out. I don't understand what's going on. And she's like, they have their phone out. It's like, yeah, it feels like they're taking pictures of me. And so she's like, what are you wearing? I said, I have on slacks, a golf polo, and my golf hat. And when she said it, TJ, it all clicked, right?
Right.
It's not the first time that someone has said, has anybody ever told you look like Tiger Woods? So I was telling this story as part of this program, and everyone gets a good laugh out of it. We have a phenomenal program. And then she sends a follow-up communication. And in Connie's follow-up communication, she starts it off by saying, Dear Tiger. And to this day, we refer to this letter as the Dear Tiger letter. Right. But in that letter, she goes on to say, everyone recognizes your ability as a sales leader. And now in education, you're doing something special. But I see something even more rare in you. And I'm going to challenge you to allow me to help you bring out that thing that's so rare. You're a natural teacher and coach. And I want to invest in you and give you a strategy to help you get there. So in this email, she lays out several steps. She's like, use this program internally, build a pitch book, build a brag book, build all these things. And if you ever need anything, reach out to me. And throughout the course of my career, she went on to be the person that I could call behind the scenes when something was happening. She was just one. I had another manager. Her name was Peggy Stimson. She was hands down the best manager I experienced. Wow. She was the type of person that fought for you in the room that you were not in. And I'll never forget this. The day she told me she was leaving the organization, I broke down and cried. We were sitting in my car. We were on the road together. And she says, hey, I have something I want to tell you. I didn't want you to hear it from anyone else. I want you to hear it from me. I've decided to move on to another opportunity. And I mean, I was like a big baby. Right. Tears, waterfalls, probably runny nose and everything, because Peggy was that person that in an environment that wasn't always supportive of someone like me, she was my champion. She was the person that said, no, this is a perfect project for Ed and he can do it. Right. And she didn't say he can do it because I'm going to do this. She would just come to me and say, hey, there's an opportunity. I put your name in for it. I want you to do X. And then she trusted that I can do those things. When we encounter people like that in our lives who see beyond where you are and can see where you're going, that's empowering. And that to me is the definition of coaching. That to me is how coaches become great leaders. They build a track record of people that they've done that for over and over and over again. And they have that ability to spot it 100 yards out, right? They can see that person walking through a crowd that has leadership potential. You've said that there's an element of personal accountability that needs to be focused on. And your quote was, personal accountability erases the need for excuses and focuses on results. Man, that's deep. So many people want to blame other people for where they are or where they are not. How does personal accountability feed into becoming the type of person that people want to follow?
Man, you went deep, and that segue was phenomenal. That question is even better. To answer it, I got to take a second. I got to really, because there's some people that are gonna want to know what's the answer to that. And for me, I use metaphors a ton, but how I see it is there's this portrait, and every day you can do whatever you want to it. It's already a masterpiece. You can enhance it. You can paint over it and start over. But we're all personally accountable to whatever it is that masterpiece is. So how do you change it? Do you come in with black? Do you come in with red? You paint the nice lapel pin on? You've got options. You've got choices. Do we dwell on what it used to be weeks ago, years ago, decades ago? And some of these things I've had to overcome and deal with real time, to where it's like, you can let that limiting belief go and you can challenge and push the envelope. I think about those great leaders that I acknowledge, and there's so many more that I can acknowledge. Rooms that you're in, that conversation's easy. The rooms you're not in, that's what Peggy was able to do for you. And I alluded to my high school coach, Stefan Thompson. He got hundreds of student athletes to Division I scholarships in his tenure as a high school coach. Now, the results on the football field, those were up and down. People would be very critical of him for the performance of the team on the field. But the impact he made in players' lives, no one was better than him at that. Okay. I'm talking multiple guys. On a 2-7 football team, we had 2-7. We had 4 Big Ten players on that roster.
Wow.
That's really unheard of for a team that had the level of success that we did, which was very limited. Season prior, we were went to the state playoffs for our high school for the first time ever. We had a few guys go D1, but no Big Ten play. So I start to think about, how is it that this guy, when the team is good, he's getting players in school. When the team is bad, he's getting players in school. How do you do that? That's personal accountability. He cared more about individuals than he did trying to make sure he won every football game. And that's a lasting impact in life. That allowed me to go to Northwestern. Without him, I'm probably not getting recruited in football, number one. And I think about the role my dad played, just helping me make the right decisions, how to speak on the phone to a college coach, because I was naive. I thought I was a basketball player, even though the recruiters were coming in, but that's personal accountability. My head coach and my dad, they were personally accountable for making sure we got this right. How do we get it right? Wasn't about me. That was on them. So once I end up there, now I got to be personally accountable to make sure I put my best foot forward. And that doesn't change, whether it's sports, business, your family, your friends. Yeah. We're all personally accountable for making sure it ends up right.
Yeah.
Becoming a leader is exciting, but how do you ensure that your skills keep pace as your team's acumen and career ambitions grow? Now more than ever, global leaders are looking for ways to develop for the future of work. We understand the pressures of striving to balance your personal development with your team's growth. That's why we've created the Periodic Table of Leadership Development. Our interactive platform provides you with access to modern, bite-sized content, transformative tools, thought-provoking perspectives, and real-world simulations to accelerate individual and organizational performance. You've worked hard to become the leader that you are today. Now you can access our library of leadership elements, unique learning journeys, and exclusive conversations. Subscribe to our newsletter so you can be the leader your team deserves.
And I want to talk about adversity next, because you mentioned being part of a team that didn't have a winning season. And for me, that hits on two notes. Number one, winning is important. There's an overemphasis on winning, so much so that I think people miss the lessons that come with losing. Right?
Yeah.
They miss the lessons because they're so focused on trying to figure out, how do we win? And then number two, as I shared with you earlier before we came on camera, I was talking about my son and his passion for football. He started late bloomer, didn't play. Sounds like similar to you, didn't play football until, high school.
Correct.
For him, it was his sophomore year, and he's really fallen in love with the game and has high aspirations. And so we sat down and came up with a plan. And our plan was simple. It was a 3-step process. I said, year one, I want you to learn your position and the rules of the game. That's it. If you walk away from this season, you can tell me what position you play, what you're supposed to do, what get flags, right? You know the rules in and out and can tell me the rules of your team and the plays. We're good. Year two, we're going to focus on technique. It's just all about technique. For your position, how do we perfect your technique? And in year three, you have to show out. You've got to put it all together, because you didn't start playing peewee football. You don't have those years where you have some time to mature in it. Year three, you have to go out and put it all together. And there's been moments of adversity in that, just like there are moments of adversity in leadership. There's moments of adversity for individuals that want to become leaders. When you think about adversity, talk to us about one of those times where things didn't go perfect, right? It's easy to think that as a leader, the story always ends, with a fairy tale ending, but that's not real. And this podcast is about sharing some of those moments when adversity wins for the moment. Can you think back to a time when you're like, man, that situation got the best of me, but you were able to learn from that moment? Just because you didn't win the state championship, there were a lot of lessons in that 2-7 season.
So coming off my sophomore year, we go to the state playoffs. Was the first in school history. The camaraderie of that team, it was amazing. That senior class, it was a group of brothers. I'm like, wow. I'm looking around like, it's gonna be like that for me. I'm young. We'll probably win the state championship. I got 2 more years. So first season, obviously 2-7. Well, that's when I first started getting recruited. So for me personally, I had to decide that I want to be really, really good at this game we call football. And I'm going to prepare myself to be the best version of myself on the field. So that meant I ran routes. I would go to my high school coach's house. His son was actually a quarterback. I would run routes with him every day. Beyond that, the passing camps, every camp I went to, I was one of the top receivers. The team success, the better we did as a team, the more exposure I was getting, both at these camps and then in the preseason rankings and et cetera. Well, after year one, where we didn't accomplish the goals that I had for myself and for the team, the response was, well, I got to get even that much better. So I dedicated even more time. And instead of playing 3 sports, I'm just going to focus on 2. Basketball, which I'm a basketball player.
Yeah.
And, football, I'm going to give it its fair share of run. What I learned through that experience, man, it meant so much to me. I came into the locker room on multiple occasions and cried, and guys laughed. I'm like, what? But what I didn't realize is that if it doesn't mean a lot to you, you can't get that level of emotion.
Wow.
So at the end of the day, it was like, okay, yeah, I get the full ride scholarship to Northwestern. But if I would have been tied to the result of that season, again, I'm a basketball player, I would have quit. Yeah. I had high school coaches that said, if you just focused on basketball, you'd be the guy we read about. So think about this. I got 2 coaches that said similar things, but different. One mentioned the possibilities. One mentioned, no, you got to limit yourself. And here's the reality. Both could have been right.
Yeah.
Both could have been right. And it was the path that I stepped into that I really leaned into, and I really grew to care about that camaraderie and that group, because basketball is very individualistic. It's just different. It's a different game. I still love it to this day. I still enjoy getting to play it. Yeah. But that skill set that I learned from playing football, that applies more to the world that I'm in now, both in terms of friends, family, and business. So that adversity, you're not always going to get the results that you want. But do you throw in the towel because the result last year, last week, last month wasn't what you expected? So if we're going to take personal accountability is not just when it's convenient.
Yeah.
You got to show up every day.
Yeah. And I love that our audience is getting to see this side of you, because these are elements of your brand that I've known over the years, right? You show, this is who you are.
Right.
So I'm excited that we're able to capture this. I do want to say this. Building a brand is challenging when you're trying to balance your corporate brand and what you can say based on the organization that you're with, and your personal brand and beliefs. How have you successfully navigated that? You do a great job of being that community support person, but at the same time being your authentic self and still representing your organization well. How do you balance that in this world where, it's not always so easy to do, and it can be limiting to do both?
If who you are behind the scenes and who you are on a podcast like this match, there's no issue. So whatever I was fearful of, I'm like, I got to find a way to lean into it. And, I'll be vulnerable. I was afraid to say, hey, I'm going to help Black people. It's like, what's going to happen if I say that? But the George Floyd situation, when he was murdered, it was a different day, especially here in the States, where a lot of companies, they really start to lean in. They care. Everybody had to pay attention to it. Regardless of what the politics were, this was a human issue. And for, the medical device space in particular, there's underrepresentation, not just in terms of the employees, but in terms of the many communities where the people that look like us, what treatment options do they have? So I took that personally.
Yeah.
So as I leaned into people across the organization, I started explaining authentically and in real world terms, I want this organization or anything I'm affiliated with to not only win, I want it to be a place where people feel comfortable. And if I don't feel comfortable, how can I bring people here for them to feel comfortable? So if people can see that level of comfort from me, that's my hope, that the tide will turn to where people can be on fire for not only leadership, but really changing people's lives.
Yeah.
And that was, again, I'm a sales rep. I'm going to just do what I do. I'm going to be about me. That was my limiting belief, but that's not who I am. I've always been about a bigger picture, and that's why I came to love football. It's not a me game. It's you represent the name on the front of the jersey, and the name on the back matters. And most people aren't a family of one.
Yes.
There's way more to the story than that. So, that was the biggest experience for me, is to be authentic when most people wouldn't say it.
Yes.
Like, I've been in meetings where people were uncomfortable. Well, maybe we need to call this a diversity program. I'm like, no, this is for Black people. And when they heard it from me, I'm like, well, will you say it? Yeah. Will you post it? Yes.
Yeah.
Well, what about women? Okay, I'll support that, but that's not what I'm doing. I'll help you. Yeah. And I'll help anybody that reaches out to me. I'll help. If there's something I can do, you represent yourself the right way, I'm going to help. Yes. So I'm not exclusive, but when it comes to certain movements and certain missions, I have to be intentional, because failure to do so, again, we go back to personal accountability.
Yeah.
If I don't do it, then who?
Yeah. And it ties into legacy as well, right? Like for me, there's nothing wrong with being proud of who you are. We see it in every other culture and every other environment. And so for us, there's no reason to shy away from it. Because if people are going to reject you solely on the basis of you're investing in Black founders, Black entrepreneurs, Black professionals, those are not the people that I want to be around, right? Because I can tell you, if they feel that way, there's more going on behind the scenes that we're not getting to hear and see.
Right.
And one of the things that I love about our relationship and our brotherhood is that iron sharpens iron. So when I see you out there doing great things, right, promoting great things, being parts of great things, I want to support you in those things. And I believe it's likewise. Going back to people who are those emerging leaders, maybe they're not in a leadership role today. How do they sharpen their skills? What strategies or tips could you give them to start to move themselves a little bit further down that track of, hey, someone sees something in me. I have to be personally accountable. What are some things that I can do on my own to get ready to be that leader that I've been told I can be?
Man, there's a person that's helped me tremendously in my career. Ebony Travis Tishner at Boston Scientific. Whatever you see from me on LinkedIn, I saw it from her. I'm like, wow, this is this person that's on fire every day. Just be that. Tell your own story, be that. Yeah. So that was one thing. So be willing to model people that are great. Another leader, he's actually the VP of sales for Medtronic ENT, Chris Reese. He was the first person that I saw say it with his chest. I'm like, whoa, man, if he can say it, and he's light-skinned, he's not even as dark as me. If he can say it, then shame on you, TJ. Be personally accountable, grow, lead, be willing to evolve, be willing to get outside of the shell that maybe you were in. So I think the first thing is be willing to mimic and model people who are successful.
Okay.
And it's not imposter syndrome. It's you got to be willing to do something different. You have to believe that there's something better for you as it pertains to other people. So if it's all about you, it ain't going to work. It's got to be how you can uniquely show up and make other people the best version of themselves. And it's not going to be everybody. There are going to be some people that are intimidated. There are going to be some people that throw stones. We'll go back to high school. There are going to be some people that laugh. You got to be okay with that. You might cry, they may laugh. You got to be okay with that. And then when I fast forward to what some of my activity looks like now, if I see a great leader, I call them. I ask, do you know this person? I send them an email. In that email, I say, hey, you've done X, Y, Z. I admire it. I want to learn from you.
Okay.
And if I don't hear back, I follow up. And then when we get on that call, or if we meet in person, we go to dinner, whatever it is, I hit them with the hard part up front. Got to let you know, I'm not looking for a job. This is not a marketing campaign. I truly want to learn. I truly want to gain perspective.
Nice.
Because you went from this environment that I used to be in as well. You quickly jumped into a new role. And then from there, you're now running, a whole business unit. What's different? What's the same? What's what you're doing right now on this podcast? Asking those questions. That's what I do 3 to 5 times a month without fail. Why? Because I want to learn. I want to be the best version of myself. I still think about the feedback that I've been given and I apply it. I'm the world's greatest plagiarist. I'll give you your credit. Executive presence. I share that. I share that with my reps. Hey, that's going to be the difference between success and failure. And sometimes people are looking at me like, well, what about the product? And I'm like, the product's just the product.
Yeah.
The product's like running a play in football. Somebody's going to have to execute it.
Yes.
If I had the perfect play call, but players that didn't believe in it, does the perfect play call matter?
Yeah.
So, to answer your question, that's where I focus on for somebody looking to become a better leader or looking to learn and grow. Just willingness to do something different and then to reach out to those who they deem somebody that they would follow or want to learn insight from.
Yeah. I love that. You hit on some things that I think are great practical tips, like being able to see someone who's in a role that you want to be in and not be afraid to reach out, right?
Right.
to reach out. And I will say this, when reaching out, I found it as a best practice is to find a way to create value for that person, right? As opposed to going to them and only asking for something. I'd say, hey, I noticed that you're doing this. Is there anything that you're working on that I could support, that I can lend a hand on or lend a voice to? When you do that, you put yourself in a different class. But so many people are afraid to reach out. They believe that person is on such a high pedestal that they can't reach out to them. And then I love the fact that you said, if I reach out once and I don't hear back, I follow up. So many people reach out once and think, oh, that person ghosted me. They didn't No, like people are busy.
Right.
It happens to me frequently. I'll miss an email. I'll just simply not see it because I'm trying to delete stuff, clean up my inbox, and I'll miss an important email. But when the person follows up, hey, did you see my first email? I'm like, my apologies, I missed it. Please bring me up to speed. What did I miss? How can I help? Where can I be support? Right. That being said, you and I were talking earlier about technology, about AI in the future. Where do you see leadership, the trends, what's going to be popular in leadership 3 to 5 years down the road as we look at the onslaught of all these exciting technologies? How do you see that impacting leaders, whether that's in a manager role, a coach role, a rep role? Where do you see technology influencing leadership and then individual contributors?
So technology at scale, every couple years, it improves, it gets better. But what will not be replaced, what will not be replicated is authenticity. Somebody that you can, you feel it, like, oh, that's somebody real.
Yeah.
That's coming from his heart. AI cannot do that. They're like, oh yeah, you can sort of tell like, oh yeah, that sort of generic. It's sort of efficient.
Yes. Yes.
Nice emojis. But when it's real and it's like, oh, that's something I can relate to on a human level, that part, that ain't going to change. The top leaders, they don't need AI.
Yes.
I take that back. Attitude and investment, that's what they have. They have an attitude that I'm going to show up and I'm going to make a positive impact, and they invest in people. That AI, the people that really get that, those are the top leaders. And making a transition to from neuromodulation in the pain management space over to cardiology. A big part of it was a willingness for me personally to want to learn something new. But the other piece was this phenomenal leader we have at Boston Scientific, Sam Conaway. Getting to know him. You said it. How do you offer value? Go to work on some of these people's teams.
Yeah.
Figure out how can I be around it? How can I be elevated by the light that they're shining? And then once you shine your light, the organization and that whole tide should lift. And then the outcome is more people should be impacted. And from a healthcare standpoint, that's something I'm really, really passionate about, is how do we make sure that the care across the globe is elevated? How do we make healthcare better? And some of it entails people having that AI perspective. And when I say AI, I'm thinking the attitude that I can help and the investment in others.
Yeah. I love AI itself. Many people know that I'm blessed to be an entrepreneur and a founder and a co-founder.
That's awesome.
And I believe AI can help managers who have not received the training and support that they deserve in every aspect. And that's where our company is looking to focus on AI. How do we take those models of good that you and I have spoken about,
right,
and make it available at scale? That being the case, when you think about your future goals, I want to shift the lens and talk a little bit about, where do you see yourself? Where do you want to be? I'm a huge fan of speaking things into existence.
Yeah.
Since childhood, we've done that. We've known people that say, oh, I have such bad luck. And sure enough, things don't go their way.
Right.
Right. Or I'm not the best candidate. And sure enough, things go that way. If we can do that when we're speaking things into existence that are negative, how do we do that when it's positive? Talk to me about where you see yourself going. Talk to us about the aspirations that you have as a leader? Because I think for some people, they believe getting to that level of leadership is the top of the mountain. It's the peak. Where do you see yourself going in the next 3 to 5 years?
Man, that's a deep question. And, 3 to 5 years is, in my mind, so far out. And the one thing that I've learned is never to take, each moment and each day for granted. So if I could for a moment go 5 years out, I hope that I've evolved. I've hoped that I've grown. I've hoped that I've learned in a lot of ways that has allowed me to impact my friends, family, businesses, people. So for me, it ain't a title. I get people that, oh yeah, you want to be a CEO. And it's like, I've been a CEO for a long time. I've worked from a professional standpoint to be the CEO of my territory, if you will, for about 21 years now since getting out of college.
Yes.
But that said, if we really focus on what the future looks like, it's really about what that energy, what do we want it to feel like? What are we excited about? And it's bigger than work. It's bigger than a title or a promotion or money. Some of this is about the impact that we can have for the people around us. So that's the key focus. And it's not a great answer to your question, but at scale, using AI, I want to be more efficient in areas that are necessary so I can be more effective, so I can be more impactful.
It was a great answer, man, because I was the next topic that I wanted to talk about was your passion for community, right? And like unprompted, you just went there. That's one of the things that I appreciate about you so much is that even when I ask a question about you specifically, you always go back to this thing is bigger than me. This thing is outside of me. I want to do something that's outside of me. And again, that's one of the things that I love about you. Talk to me about some of the things that you're passionate about outside of your corporate role, right? Those goals and aspirations that we talked about that tie to you professionally.
Yeah, I alluded to Chris Reese a little bit ago. When he was at Boston Scientific after the murder of George Floyd, we created the Boost program, which is to help Black professionals transition into med device careers.
Okay.
And that's something that I've been really passionate about after seeing other things at Boston Scientific be really impactful. Sam Conaway, who's the leader of our cardiology business, he created Close the Gap many, many moons ago. And that's emerged into a consulting arm of our company to where we can go into a hospital system and highlight not only here's where these underserved populations are, here's what it is costing your hospital. So to put it in words that I would use, here's what your hospital is losing in terms of dollars. So it's not just a feel-good community story. It is a financial conversation as well. I think any good executive can do 4 things well. They can have a clinical conversation, and executive in the healthcare space. They can have a clinical conversation. They can have a financial conversation. They can have a strategic conversation and a collaborative conversation. I love to focus on that collaborative piece because that's my team bringing an idea to the table and your team bringing an idea to the table that we can marry together to impact patients. Point blank, period. So going back to the Boost program, that's where I spend a lot of my spare time talking to aspiring Black professionals, helping them get in, helping them understand it's not just your resume. It's not just your background. Some of it is you got to know someone like me because I know a lot of people and I can put you in contact with someone that can really help you. They can offer you insight. And that's where that vulnerability comes from. It was just the idea that we could get more Black applicants to these job opportunities here at Boston and across the healthcare landscape, because that's what I was hearing. We don't have enough Black applicants. And from my perspective, it's like, these are very high paying jobs. I can make that happen. But the reality is you want people that fit the mold of what you're looking for.
Right.
And people are like, well, we can't find them. And I'm like, I know where they're at.
Yeah.
Did anybody ask me? But sometimes we can't wait to be asked for our opinion. We can't wait to be asked to help. We just have to raise our hand and say, you know what, I can do this.
Yep.
So for me, that's something I'm passionate about, because without that intentionality, there are a lot of people that will reach out to someone and they get no response. And what happens? After somebody reaches out so many times or tries for so many years, we lose out on that top talent that will go to other career paths. And that's selfishly, that's what I care about. I want all the talented people who are hardworking, persistent, willing to grow. I want them to come work on my team.
Yes.
And I say my team, I have a feeling that my team will get much bigger sooner rather than later. So if that's the case, if I'm not actively going through training camp, getting people ready, then I've waited too long. And again, I'm personally accountable for making sure I do all I can to deliver the best results possible in business, in life, etc.
And I love that. And, I was going to touch on the fact that many people listening to today's show, they may be saying to themselves, I love this conversation. I want to be part of it, but I'm not sure what TJ's looking for. How, do I have the right skills? What are you looking for when you start to build that network, that community of people that you're thinking, I'm building a talent pool that I'll be able to tap into? What are some of the attributes, skills, traits that you're looking for when you're starting to build that community?
The number one thing that I'm looking for, and any leader is probably looking for, is somebody that works well with others. Nobody says that, though. I'm looking for somebody who got XYZ experience. Listen, I've got this many years of cardiology experience.
Okay.
And I'm in what I feel to be one of the most important divisions at Boston Scientific from a structural heart standpoint. That many years. And I've got a sales team, a phenomenal sales team with over 100 years of experience among 6 reps. And I got 0 years. How is it that I'm in that position? I got to figure out how I work well with others. I better bring that to the table every day, because I don't know a majority of the answers when it comes to some of the challenges that may come up clinically. But guess what? That's not my job. I've got reps that some of them have 30 years of experience and they've been successful. They're really the LeBron James. They're the LeBron James of the cardiology space. And I get to work with those individuals. So my job, make sure that I don't get in their way, make sure that I'm providing resources, make sure that I work well with others. If I'm able to work well with others, I probably create a culture and environment to where my team feels comfortable working well with others. And then what do? We bring in talented people that don't necessarily have the same experience or aptitude in this particular space, but we can train them up. Why? Because we've got a winning culture. And that's what I talk about on every conference call. That's at the list, on the top of the list of our agenda. We're going to, number one, deliver aggressive results. We're going to be the best version of ourselves at work and outside of work. And then the other piece, which I think is vitally important, we're going to create a winning culture. And a winning culture doesn't mean that you win every time. It means that you create the environment to where winning is likely.
Yeah, I love that. So TJ, I always like to have our guests reflect on a question. And one of my favorite podcasts is a show called The Pivot. And so earlier you mentioned about finding things that are great, that you love, and then modeling your behavior after them. And so I've been working on this for a couple of weeks. So you're going to be the first episode that gets this brand new question.
Okay.
If you could go back and have a conversation with the younger version of TJ, and you get to send him a message now that he'll open a couple of years from now, what would you say to him?
Man, it would be bad. Because not everybody is motivated by love. Some people are motivated by hate. And, the stuff that I would say to myself would be centered around the things that make me most vulnerable. It'd be centered around not taking for granted the gifts that you have, sacrificing for yourself so that you can give back to others. It would be, what are you waiting for? It would be, why are you getting comfortable? It would be, when you get comfortable being uncomfortable, why are you not taking more risk? It would be, why are you listening to the status quo? Why are you? And that's how I've always been. I remember being that kid that when they told me you can't say you want to be a professional athlete, I was the kid that would ask, so are you saying that I should want to be, what should I say? And I would look at that person, should I want to be you? And it was derogatory, because it's like, if you're not fired up doing what it is you're doing, don't try to change my dream. So sometimes when I look back, I reflect on how maybe I didn't set my goals high enough. I remember sophomore year, I said I want to be a 2-sport college athlete, and that happened.
Right.
But I look back and say, why did I say the college? Why didn't I set the bar a little bit higher? So the things that I write down, when I go back and reflect on them, a lot of it comes to pass. So I'm increasingly wondering, how can I set the bar higher? So a lot of what I would say is, why aren't you pushing yourself harder? And it's not just about the work ethic piece. It's about mentally. Some of those limiting beliefs that I've had since childhood, I would challenge them head on.
Yeah. I think it was Jay-Z who said, people often discourage you from doing the things that they're afraid of, right? When someone says you can't be a 2-sport athlete, it's because they don't believe they have the ability to be a 2-sport athlete, and they're projecting that on you. So I love the fact that you're sharing that. I love the fact that that would be one of the messages back to your younger self, because that's really important that we have that. Imposter syndrome exists when we can't push it out by acknowledging the great things that we're doing or the great things that are ahead. Oh, I don't know why I'm in this room with these great leaders. Well, I'm in this room with these great leaders because I'm a great leader.
Right.
And I surround myself with great leaders. And so it makes sense that I'm in the room, right? How do we push ourselves outside of that? So I love that you would say that to your younger self. If I were to answer that question for myself, it would be this. There are boundless opportunities. There are things out there that you don't know today that you can learn and accomplish. Why aren't you doing them? Right? Taking that from yours. Like we embrace that spirit of it's out there. Someone has to do it. Why not me? Why can't that be me that goes out there and does that? And I think we've been conditioned throughout life to choose between things and think of things as or. I have to do this, or I have to play football, or I have to be a basketball player. I have to be an entrepreneur or a founder. And my mentality today is about something I call the and principle.
I love it.
You can be a great football and basketball player,
right?
And get recruited for both, and have offers from schools that are interested in you as a single sport athlete. And that gives you more options than trying to pick a single sport and hope that you get enough, offers from a single school. So I'm all about embracing and that's what this podcast is about. We entitled it again, Conversations That Matter, because we want to bring real conversations like this to the people in our network. Where it will go, I don't know.
Right.
Will it, grow and we have thousands and hundreds of thousands of followers? If that is part of the purpose for the show, great. If not, I'm comfortable knowing that we're getting to that one person that hears this and says, they're two brilliant leaders having a conversation about their journey, and I can learn something from that. And that's the purpose of the show. So, brother, I appreciate you coming on. It's been an honor to have you here. I appreciate you cutting out some time in your schedule. I know we've been trying to get this on the books for a while.
No, man, this is when it was supposed to happen, and the in-person is more vulnerable. Because it's easy behind the screen to be polished, like, oh, man, I know I sounded good. I did my voice warm up. But in person, like that realness that you can feel, you cannot replace that. And that's what leadership is. It's really face-to-face. It's meeting people where they are. And you met me you came into town. So how can I turn that down unless I was scared? and again, that would be in a letter that I would write to myself. Don't be afraid to go out and take risk. Don't be afraid to be vulnerable. And as long as your heart's in the right place, people can sense that. They'll know that. They'll embrace that. And that's all about that potential piece that we've talked about this whole podcast. The potential. There's boundless opportunities. We got to explore that.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I want to thank you all for listening to today's episode of Conversations That Matter. I'm your host, Ed Ross, and our guest, TJ. It's been an honor to have you here. I'm excited to watch your journey continue to excel and go out there and do great things. And I'm more honored to call you a friend. Thank you. You can subscribe by clicking the button and following us so that you make sure that you get the follow-up episodes that come out.
All right, man.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you. Nice work, man. I appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to Conversations That Matter with Ed Ross. By subscribing to Conversations That Matter wherever you get your podcasts, you're taking a step towards becoming the leader you aspire to be. Subscribe to Conversations That Matter today and be part of a community dedicated to creating meaningful change, one conversation at a time.